CJ Sadler could be the next big commit for the Terps.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you guys for making us part of your day. And this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. CJ Sadler could be the next big commit for the Terps. So a lot of you guys are probably going to be pretty familiar with this kid, CJ Sadler, who I am really hoping that the Terps are able to land this kid, CJ Sadler. He looks like he's going to be a really good player, as his ranking suggests. It's not like me trying to come up with like a niche player that's like a 3-star, but I think he has a lot of potential. Like, no, this kid's a top 100 recruit, and I think he could be the next big commit for Maryland's 2026 class, who still lacks a lot of I just think high-end players in that class. I think there's a lot of like decent guys, a lot of guys that you can kind of hope are going to be good, but there's not a lot of sure things that were like, yeah, they're going to be good players. Like in the 2025 class, there were so many guys that I felt really good about being good players, whether it was Malik Washington. We obviously thought he was going to be good, and his potential as a player, Jalen Gilchrist, and him being on the offensive line and him being a high-level player in the offensive line, or on the edge, you hear Mathis, or at safety, 4-star Messiah Home, or 4-star Bryce Jenkins, or whatever the case is. There's a lot of different players that we felt could not only just be good, but like really good for the Terps, like all Big Ten types of players. They won't all pan out, but you hope that most of them will. But who knows? In the 2026 class, the only player that you're like, yeah, he's going to be really good is 5-star Zion Ely. Now, he's as close to a sure thing as you're going to get, but as I always say in football, you want to round out your class. You want to get as many good, solid, high-level players as you possibly can get. You don't just want to get a guy there and a guy here. You want to complete the class and get as many different guys as possible. So I do think this kid, CJ Sadler, is going to end up being a really, really, really good player in college. And now, so the thing is, I do think he could end up being the next big commit for the Terps. It is definitely looking a bit iffy right now. It's looking a little bit iffy, but Maryland did finish in his top schools, which is obviously huge for the Terps. The fact that we landed in his top 4 schools, and I'm not even exactly sure why we're in his top 4 schools. It's not like the kid's a DMV kid. Like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Usually, to be honest, if they're this high level type of guy and they're not from DC, Maryland, or Virginia, usually Maryland is nowhere to be seen. That's just what it is. We're not a national presence yet. Usually we'll be in the top 5 if they're even a 5-star, 4-star if they're from the DMV. But if they're not, we're usually not in the conversation. So I don't know exactly why this kid is looking at Maryland, but based off his top 4, based off of reading some things, this could be Maryland's next big commit. Now, Rivals feels pretty good about him going to Michigan. The Fan Future Cast has him 76% to Michigan, in the future cast that the website does has him 100% to Michigan, which makes sense. He's from Detroit, Michigan. It makes sense for him to want to go to Michigan. That would make the most linear sense. But part of me tells me that this kid doesn't want to stay home, and that Maryland is somewhere that he might see as an underrated spot where he could go, and that can make a lot of sense. And here's why I think we have the potential to land him. Obviously, like I just said, we're in his top 4, so obviously we're in the conversation. We're in the top 4 with Colorado, so you got some legendary coaches in the top 4 with him. You're in the top 4 with Colorado as well. So you got Deion Sanders going after this kid as well. So you have Michigan too. So you have Michigan and what they're building. You have Deion at Colorado. And then you also have Bill Belichick at North Carolina. So you have some big time programs that are after this kid, and we'll see kind of how it ends up turning out for CJ Sadler. I do think he could make a lot of sense with Maryland, though. I think he can make a lot of sense with Maryland. And he's an athlete, so we don't know exactly what he's going to play, but this is the main reason why I think Maryland makes sense for him. He's an athlete that either projects, when you read about him, when you read what people have to say about him, they think he either projects at a slot corner or possibly safety or corner, or a slot corner. Sorry, I meant slot receiver, or potentially a corner, either on the slot or the outside, or a do it all type of safety, which I think is what Maryland has done a really good job of developing over the last couple of years. We've had receivers go to the NFL, whether it's Ty Felton last year, and we've had or Caden Prather last year. We've had Rakeem Jarrett got a lot of time in the NFL. Obviously, in the more grand scheme of things, you think of guys like Diggs, you think guys like DJ Moore, like Maryland's always done a good job with receivers. But recently, we have done an awesome job with DBs, whether it's getting Dante Joyner drafted last year, or Bo Braid was on the Ravens 53-man roster, or Tarheeb Still was in the Rookie of the Year conversations after the year that he had for the Chargers, and people think he's going to end up being a really good starting corner for the Chargers. Jacorian Bennett obviously got drafted. So you feel pretty good about those two positions groups in terms of Maryland. Like, that's what Maryland does their best right now. And I think you would say Michigan does a better job than us probably at the corner spot and the safety spot. But in terms of receiver, I can't say Michigan does a better job than us. Can't. They've had some good players come out of there. But recently, that's not what they do a ton. And so if you want to go play defense, Michigan can make sense with Maryland could also. We've done a lot of good stuff in terms of, obviously, I mentioned all those names in developing. I think that's exciting for a kid like CJ Sadler, being able to go to his own way and be able to go to Maryland and developing his own type of thing. I think that makes a lot of sense for the Terps. I think that that's something that could be really fair for Maryland, and something that could end up being really good for the Terps, and something that could really end up working out for CJ Sadler. So I think he has that potential to really go either way, and that's kind of what Maryland has done the best at so far this year. So I think that can make a lot of sense. And then I also think what's awesome from Maryland's side of things, it's a guy that can kind of just do everything, and you feel like you can find its home. And we kind of had a similar type of deal with Zamir Smith, and we don't know exactly how that's going to work out. A really talented 4-star athlete, that speed and all those types of things. And it sounds like Zamir Smith is starting to fit in nicely with his role. I think we're going to be able to put him in the right spot, and it's going to be more about where he's best, and instead of like where the team needs him most. I think we'll put him in those types of spots. His top four is really interesting, though. Like, usually these top fours make like somewhat sense in terms of geographically or like level of program. It's a little bit all over the place. So I really don't know exactly what's going to end up happening with this kid. I would say Michigan's the favorite right now, and he does announce his commitment on August 15th. So we got a couple more weeks, like 3 weeks from now. But we'll see what ends up happening. I do think Maryland could end up being, and I'll be super excited if we get this guy. He's listed at 5'10". This is what the scouting report says. From 247, this is from Andrew Ivins. A 3-phase impact player on Friday nights has delivered in key moments despite lacking the ideal physical features. Could project to a variety of different positions. Tempo and suddenness as a route runner suggest that most schools are likely to give him a look at slot receiver, but the ceiling might be higher at inside corner or low safety. given his instincts and physicality. Regardless, should offer value as a return man with his make or miss agility. Effectively in the quick perimeter game with his vision and acceleration, it makes him a surprising number of contested catches at the second and third levels for someone that's under 5'10. As a defender, isn't afraid to take risk and be aggressive. Size will certainly be a sticking point for someone, but it's hard to overlook the fact that he has risen to the cage uh, in multiple best on best settings. Should be viewed as a potential gadget player in offense that can be utilized on jet sweeps and screens, or a possible difference maker in the nickel or defense. So to me, I think after reading that, I prefer him on the defense side of things. Whenever I hear something like ceiling, like he could potentially be better on one side of the football, I think you got to put him on defense. I don't think Maryland has had enough elite types of talent on defense. I think having an elite type of talent, they are playing like that star slot position or playing safety, getting all over the field. I think is a little bit more valuable, or a lot more valuable, than having someone that can be a gadget player. I think gadget players can get a little bit overrated, especially when you try and kind of force them the ball in ways. But if he's a good route runner out of the slot and he does a lot of things there, like obviously give him a look there. But it sounds like his upside on the defensive side of things, I bet that's what Michigan really likes about him. But I also don't know what Michigan likes. But top 100 kid would really elevate this 2026 class, would come in automatically blue chip type of prospect. Right now they list him as a 4-star. They 247 has him ranked 85th nationally, which is definitely pretty high. They have him ranked as a 7th ranked athlete, which is definitely also pretty big for the Terps. So definitely someone to keep an eye out for. But I think when you play around with some of these athletes, it's really exciting. But back to the 2026 class, he would come in and automatically be our second best player in that class after Zion Ealing. I've been saying we need more blue chip guys. We need high end guys. And that would be one of the few guys that Mike Locksley has gotten outside of the DMV that's like a top 100 commit. And at the end of the day, if you want to compete at the highest level, you got to be able to recruit really all over the country, maybe even all over the world for that sake. Basketball, it's more all over the world. Football, really, you just got to be in the country doing it well. But who knows? They're getting guys from interesting places nowadays. So I do think this guy's going to end up being a really good player. I think he ends up being a defensive player. Don't quote me on that. Don't know for sure. I'd be curious to see where teams want him. I know Mike Locksley would also like him on the offense side of things. But if Locksley's able to do this, maybe that could be the run that starts things going. I forget what players started it last year, but there's definitely like one guy where it happened and all of a sudden we're starting to get multiple guys. I want to say it was Malik Washington, but I'm not 100% sure it was. But there was definitely a bit of a ripple effect for the Terps, and we continue to get players. So we'll see exactly who else we end up getting. I'm going to talk about Maryland's secondary and a player that got rated top on PFF's cornerback rankings. Can the Terps secondary be elite next year? We'll talk about that next. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spendings in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. What is surprising to me is that it tracks literally everything you need. I'm a big food delivery guy. It does that. Any takeout or subscriptions that you need, you can see that on Monarch. And if you guys are like me, sometimes you forget how much you're spending on delivery, or you lose track of a subscription, or if you want to try a free trial for something and all of a sudden you forget to cancel it, you'll see that on Monarch Money. So you can really have a clear, organized picture of everything, and you can see how fast you're spending. Monarch Money makes a lot of sense. So take control of your finance with Monarch Money. Use code Lots on College at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code Lots on College for half off your first year. So I don't know if you guys saw this, but I'm starting to think Maryland secondary can actually be really good next season for the Terps, and could be a strength of the Terps next year. So There was a really interesting article that came out from PFF, or not an article, I guess you would say, their rating system, and it was the top 5 returning cornerbacks in the Big Ten. So PFF released her top 5 returning corners, and Dante Joiner made the list, which to me is honestly really interesting. I didn't expect him to be on that list. I don't think I've realized how good of a player he's been and the type of guy that he can be next year for the Terps. Clearly, PFF graded him really high from last year. So this is something to me that I think matters, something that can be something. They rated their top guys returning in the Big Ten. I was a little bit confused because I'm like, technically he's a transfer, so he's not coming from the Big Ten last season, but I guess they still included transfers in the list. And so when I saw the article, I started thinking, and I was like, PFF has him as a top 5 rated corner in the Big Ten. They have DJ Harvey at USC 1. They have this kid D'Angelo Pons at Indiana at 2. Jalen Bowden, Minnesota at 3. Xavier Scott at Illinois 4. And then they have Dontay Joyner at 5. AJ Harris behind him, who a lot of people think is the best corner in the conference. So Dante Joiner obviously tore it up when he was at Arkansas State, playing 24 games, 69 tackles, 2 interceptions, 9 passes defended. And so to me, I'm like, there's potential in that secondary. If Dante Joiner, I'm not expecting him to even be a top 5 corner in the Big Ten. That's not really what I expect. But if he can be top 15 corner in the Big Ten, that's plenty good enough. Top 15, top 10, like I think that's really good for obviously some of these guys on the list play at the Big Ten level, which is higher than the level that Dante Joiner played at. But an 80.3 PFF rating last year is still really good. If he can have a top 10, top 15 corner out of Dante Joiner, and then one of the other corners comes on the outside, I don't know if it's going to be one of the young guys. Like I really like Braden Lee and Kevin Humes. I think they can be really good players. Obviously, Jamar Glasser coming from Wake Forest, we feel really good about as well. But if one of those guys can come on and be good players for the Terps out of those 3, which I think Braden Lee and Kevin Humes are really one of those guys could really come on. I don't know if both of them do. And then also you got Jamar Glasser, more of a veteran coming from Wake Forest, who's also a really good player. I think you start with Jamar Glasser and then Dante Joiner. That's pretty good. And you have Humes and Braden Lee right behind those guys, 2 young guys to learn that can be really good players as well. Like that's pretty solid. And then you have Jalen Husky, who a lot of people think is going to be one of the best safeties in the Big Ten. We could have something in that secondary. There's a lot of solid bodies, and that's what Maryland's had over the last couple of years. So I wouldn't expect it to be really that much different. We've had good secondaries. We have last year. I wouldn't say is one of them, and we still had guys get drafted, but I wouldn't say it was the best group. This year, it could be a lot better. And I'm really a believer in this kid, Dante Joiner, actually being one of the better guys, one of the better players on Maryland's team in PFF. So PFF had him grade him really high. The Big Ten's a different level, but you also avoid a lot of the big boy receivers in the conference. You miss some of the guys that you play at USC that are big time types of guys. You miss the Ohio State receiving room, which is the best in the country, one of the best ones you'll ever see in Jeremiah Smith, but also a guy like Cardinal Tate's really freaking good at football. Penn State's receiver room has improved. Like we get Michigan. Like I'm not that scared of Michigan's receiving room. Like there's other teams that you get. So I'm like, can Dante Joiner be a top 10 corner in the Big Ten? PFF tends to think going into the year, he is based off the grades. I don't see why not. Can one of the other guys step up? Obviously, we feel good about Jamar Glasser. He's played a high level. Kevin Humes, Braden Lee struggled last year, but they were both freshmen. Could one of those guys also be good? And Jalen Husky really came on last year towards the end. And there's plenty of other young guys that you're excited about as well in that room. Le'Veon Scruggs, the other safety, obviously has played a good amount. Like he's going to be good. Masai Holmes, a 4-star freshman. Judah Jenkins been there a little bit now. Shamar McIntosh. Like there's good players in that room where you're like, this could be something for the Terps. We could hang our hat on the secondary where last year I think we wanted to, but we just didn't have the personnel. And I think we've never had an elite pass rush. And I think we have more bodies and more physicality up front and more guys we can rotate. But I don't know if that's going to contribute to us actually being much better statistically on the defense line. I think we'll have more depth. I don't know if we'll be better statistically, but I think this secondary room can actually be really good for the Terps and maybe the strong part of the defense, I would say. Let's talk about the offensive line. I think it's going to be much improved next year. Talk about that next. I think I got the hiccups all of a sudden. The worst part of the day to get the hiccups in, but we'll finish this up. I think Maryland's offensive line is actually going to be much improved. And I'm starting to look at this roster. Honestly, it's starting to grow on me. The more stuff that starts to come out, the more I'm kind of looking through it. I'm like, there's young players. There's a lot of different types of bodies that we just haven't seen. And I think we've been used to over the last couple of years, like always having 6, 7, 8 guys that come back that you're like, oh, like we know they're going to be good. Like Dante's come back for the last couple of years. Like Ty Felton's been back for the last couple of years. Like Caden Prather would come back and you'd feel good about. Or the days when it was Talia, like we knew what we would, like we felt good. Where this is kind of like it's a lot of new stuff, but I still feel really good that there's some potential, and I do think this line can be really good. People are high on Alan Hare and think he can be the best offensive lineman on our team. The tackle, who I think got introduced last year a little bit and now kind of understands how to be better, how to improve. And then at guard, the same thing with Alao Ba, who used to go to Georgia. I feel confident he can be better. Don't know who's going to start at center yet. Maybe Michael Hershey, the sophomore. Don't know who else it would be, to be completely honest. But we'll see. And then Isaiah Wright, who missed last season, is actually going to Big Ten Media Day, which I don't know what time I'll record tomorrow, but maybe we'll talk about that tomorrow. Isaiah Wright going to Big Ten Media Day, and then Latrell Perry on tackle. Like he also is a guy that people are picking. And then you got other guys too, like Ryan Howerton's young. You feel like he's going to be good. Jalen Gilchrist, 4-star offensive lineman. Obviously, you don't want to throw those guys in too early, but you feel like is pretty good. So and then you have another kid, Carlos Moore, who transferred in from Elon. Like, there's a lot of bodies that could potentially be a lot better this year on the offensive line. And it's a big key with Malik Washington and all the kind of new parts and new offensive coordinator and how this thing is really going to look. I don't know exactly, but I do think that this Maryland offensive line can be a lot better. To last year, it was arguably the worst in the Big Ten. One of the worst, and I think I read an article that said it was the worst graded in all Power Four, which I think is probably fair. It was pretty bad last year, and that's why I'm still trying to figure out my opinion on Billy Edwards, and I'm almost positive Wisconsin will give him better protection than we did, so we'll kind of get a better idea how good Billy Edwards is this year with the different scheme. I think it fits him a little bit better, but I just don't want to see Malik Washington on his back, and I haven't seen anything come out that's like Justin Martin's going to be the starter. Haven't seen a thing come out. So I'm feeling better and better about Malik Washington being the starter and that's going to end up happening. Haven't seen anything come out to think differently. So I'm really interested to see how this thing ends up going for the Terps. So I do think it'll be better. I think our tackles are more solidified, and those are most important parts, especially if we're going to throw the ball out like we have. Like our tackles, I feel good about Latrell Perry. I feel solid about Alan Heron having some experience. The transfer of Latrell Perry coming in was pretty sought after, and there's some depth. There's some guys that you feel good about in the back end. So I do think this tight end room can actually end up being pretty solid for the Terps. We'll see how it actually ends up working out. But I do think that room can be pretty good for Maryland football, but we'll see what ends up happening. That's all we have for today. Thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps.